Greetings and salutations, everyone, and welcome to tonight's second half. Before we jump into this very informative second half, a couple links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It doesn't cost you a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go, and yes, folks, they definitely do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to tonight's second half, shall we? Alright guys, so earlier today I shared a photo from a former sheriff deputy, now animal control officer / researcher. She had taken this photo that she believes to be a baby Dogman out in the Great Dismal Swamp area. She is and has been researching with a friend, fellow researcher, looking for clues on the Beast of Bladenboro, also Dogman in that region. Today, I'm going to share with you guys a little bit of, it was an actual voice memo that she sent me. It's quite a long voice memo describing things that she had witnessed as a deputy. And as a animal control officer. So let's get into that right now. Today's first encounter. I don't even know where to start, and it pains me to even think about this because it happened less than a month ago. For my safety, I am going to remain anonymous, but you can call me Jake. I'm 21 and I'm a male. Last week I decided to take a trip from LA to my boyfriend's in Wyoming, as we were finally moving in together, so we needed to get final things from his parents' house back to our new one in LA. It's around a 15-hour trip there and the same return, so I stopped along the way in Utah for a day as my friend lives there, and I really didn't have any issues in my journey until I stupidly decided I'd drive the last 8 hours straight during the night. I was about an hour outside of Salt Lake City. It was about 1 a.m, driving through a forested road when it happened. There was a decapitated deer in the road, which made me bring my car to a stop. It was right slap bang in the middle, blocking me from getting by as the road was narrow. The entire area surrounding me was pitch black, my headlights being the only source of light except for the moon. The moon might have been full. I really don't even remember. I didn't even look up. I had to do something, so I tried calling my boyfriend, but the signal kept dropping, so we were not able to talk for long. He told me to drive over it, as getting out was not worth the risk of a predator still being around. I really wish I had listened to him. I got out of the car and headed toward the deer, and while I was making my way over, the crickets slowly went silent. The only sound was my car's engine, which really made me feel unsettled. I just wanted to get out of there, so I took hold of the deer's legs and started to drag it out of the way into the side of the road. I was not going to touch the head because it was going to be easy to either go around or over it. Dealing with it would have been too much for my squeamish self. It was what happened next that shook me to my core. When I had finished dealing with the deer's body, I wiped my hands clean on my shirt and looked up at my car, and sure enough, there it was, right next to my open door, 7-8 feet tall, covered in dark fur, standing on its 2 legs. Its eyes were like ours, but bloodshot. And I mean bloodshot. Its pupils were kind of a yellowish orange, and one of its hands was clenching my car door. I can still see those long, thick claws scraping into my glass window. It was looking right into my soul, panting and frowning like it had full of rage with me. So much so that its mouth was opening slowly, revealing long canine teeth. I was frozen like a deer in headlights, which was ironic because the headlights were on me now. I didn't know what to do, but I slowly took a step back, and as I did, it took a step toward me. Its legs were jointed like a dog's. This thing didn't look like a standard werewolf that you'd see in the movies, but more like a wolf man or dog man. It was unlike anything I could have imagined. At this point, I was panicking. I genuinely thought I was going to die this night, alone and afraid. When I took one last step back, it charged at me with the most deafening roar I had ever heard in my life. So much adrenaline was running through me that I swerved when it was about a foot away from me, and it tried to swipe me with its claws as I did this. It turned over to the floor, and so did I, but it gave me the opportunity to run back to my car, get back in, and step on the pedal faster than I ever did before. I had to pass this creature as it was now back where I had just found that deer, but I did not care about hitting it. I just wanted to be out of there. The beast lunged at the car as I passed by it, which caused the whole car to shake, but by now I was already ramping up speed, and after 20 minutes of going way faster than I should have been going on a road like that, I was clear and back onto the freeway, at which point I felt safe and was able to call my boyfriend. I was frantic and could barely speak a word, and he was just as upset as I was after hearing about what just happened. I called the police after that, and they said they would send a few rangers down to that road to investigate, and that they had reports from other people passing through that very same road that very same night. Of course, I didn't hear anything back after that. I have always been a fan of horror, but I never ever considered anything like this to be real. I don't even know if I still believe it was real. I sit up at night trying to come up with any other reasonable explanation for that evening. The only thing I know is that if I hadn't swerved out of its way that night, I probably wouldn't be here to share it right now. Tonight's second encounter. I was told that I had seen a Dogman, so I'm here to share with you what I experienced. I've never heard of Dogman until someone commented about it, so I'm hoping you guys can confirm that what I saw was, or maybe even possibly another entity. I live in rural Florida. This happened a few weeks back. I was driving by myself at around midnight. I came to a stoplight where there's a cemetery on the right and a new apartment building on the left. This particular light is extremely long since it's not activated by sensors when you pull up to it. So I'm waiting for a few minutes, and all of a sudden I instinctively look behind me. I felt like someone was watching me intently. About 30 feet from where I was waiting for this light to change at this bus stop beside me, right in front of the benches where you would wait, I see this huge figure that looked like a wolf or a giant dog. I'm staring at it, thinking to myself, wow, that's an enormous dog. All the while, I start getting goosebumps. I feel my heart start racing, and I cannot figure out why. I start to feel evil thoughts in my head. I say feel because I couldn't make out what the words were being said. I just remember while I was staring at this creature, I felt like it was mocking me, laughing, or challenging me. Then I see the figure stand up on two legs while staring in my direction. It stood up and was suddenly taller than the top of the bus overhang. But it did not look like a human. It looked like an animal just standing on two legs. Meanwhile, I'm waiting for this damn light to turn green. And keep in mind, there's lights all around that bus stop, but this figure was pure black. So the figure stood on its hind legs, and now I'm looking at this huge dog with an alpaca neck and body. It looked really girthy. I see this thing continue to stare in my direction, and I think to myself, okay, this is really weird, but even if it's my imagination, it's going to disappear when I start driving. The whole time I'm feeling panicked, and I hear in my head, run, but I can chase you. I skirt out of the stoplight. It's still friggin' red, but I didn't care at that point, and drive away as quickly as I can. And then I look behind me as I'm driving. This friggin' figure is sprinting full speed on all fours. It looked like a deranged wolf chasing me. I felt pure panic as I'm speeding away. Maybe out of instinct, I yelled, "I have God with me. You can't hurt me. Nothing can hurt me. I'm protected by my angels and by God." Paraphrasing here. It was at that point I realized that I was feeling like I'm being choked, because after I said that out loud, I felt like I couldn't breathe. I didn't feel like I was being chased anymore, and when I looked back, the thing was gone. The total time I spent at that light was maybe 3 minutes. The light takes 5+ minutes to turn green, and when it stood on 2 legs, it did look like an animal, but with human-like mannerisms, and its legs were human-like as well. Let me know what you think, and thank you for allowing me to share. Alright guys, this next part of the upload is a recording from a subscriber about 3 years ago. I've held on to this recording for that long. Didn't really forget about it. I knew it was there. I kind of waited and hoped that she would come on and share a lot of her research experience and experiences she had while she was a sheriff deputy out of North Carolina. I'm going to leave her anonymous. I'm not going to share any locations because I know that she definitely wants that. She was hurt in the line of duty in a very bad car accident, broke her back, became a animal control officer in the same region. Actually, during this recording, she's actually driving, recording and talking about Dogman, and a lot of very interesting information, stuff that back 3 years ago, I was just learning about. And she, of course, like I said, researcher, her friend, and her are the people that are responsible for sharing that photo of a supposed baby Dogman in a tree on a kind of island in North Carolina off a lake. She's been to Bladenboro, researched the beast of Bladenboro. Just a really nice person, and she shares a lot of great info during this recording. So check it out. I hope you guys like it as much as I did.
I want to talk to you about just the observation I made, and I'm pretty sure everybody out there has made this. I just want to talk about it. Yes, I'm at work, but we very rarely get a break, and we're slow today, so I'm taking a lunch break that I normally don't get. But I want to talk about the kudzu vine. I think I'm saying that right. Kudzu, or kudzu. And I think anyone that lives in the South knows what I'm talking about. When you go up and down the road, you see these vines that take over everything. As a green leafy vine. It was actually in the 1970s they classified it as a weed, but it's actually was used as a plant for cattle to graze on. It has like a sweet aroma to it, and it was brought in the United States in 1800s. Originally come, I think, Philadelphia. It come from China, and they had a They made a garden or a show of culture in China, and this kudzu was put in that garden they created for China. So anyway, a local realized that the plant was just abundant and very resistant to pretty much anything. Now the roots on this can go up to 7 foot deep, and some ball of the roots have been known to weigh up to 400 pounds. The roots are very important. I'll get to that in a minute. And you're probably wondering why I'm putting this out in the Dogman, Bigfoot, crypto world. You'll see in just a moment. Let me see if I got a call.
Good first, 11, can I click? Thank you.
So they realized really quickly it would be perfect for the South, and that's from Virginia all the way to Texas, for land erosion, because the land was literally being washed away in flash floods, and so they decided to plant this stuff. But they also found out that, hey, this is actually good for, has a multi-purpose. The livestock and wildlife just would eat this stuff like it was just candy. So everybody just jumped on board and started planting this stuff.
Go ahead. That last call, the caller back. Did she miss the call?
So what they didn't realize, this was a very invasive plant, which in 1970 it was classified as a weed, and it literally is known today as the vine that ate the South. Okay, so this vine is actually an extraordinary vine, and if you drive down the road, you especially in North Carolina, pretty much anywhere in the South, but I can speak from North Carolina because I'm from North Carolina, and that's where I do my field research at. When you see driving down the road, like anywhere in the state, you see this green wall of a vine that just consumes everything. I mean, even the public utilities constantly are fighting this vine. And the thing about fighting this vine and it being so intrusive to the area, the roots can be dormant for up to 10 years, and all of a sudden one day they decide, hell, I want to grow again, and they grow. And you thought you had a problem under control, and I believe the Forestry Service said it consumes about 150,000 acres a year. And I know NC State did a study on it and said it weren't that invasive. But honestly, if you drive down the road, I would be like, okay, where are you getting your studies from? Because, I mean, it's like, boom, there's a green wall of kudzu vines. So let's look at the municipal principles of this. It's a Chinese herb. This herb, the roots, which is a starch also, is used to fight diabetes, heart disease, to improve circulation, to treat alcoholism, blood circulation, skin issues, which I need some of that then, digestive system, upset stomachs, pain, dizziness, dehydration, I've already said, these heart disease. So this vine is incredible. So why do I bring this vine up? And me and one of my friends were talking the other night, and he was talking about he has a case in North Carolina, and these creatures come out of these vines. And I kind of, like a year prior, where he comes from, he has caves and stuff like that. Where I come from, we don't have a lot of caves in our area. So I was actually trying to look at, are they going underwater in the caverns, or are they living in the root systems? But nothing fit our area. And we're trying to figure out where they live, why we don't have structures or markers and, such. They don't need them in our area because they have these vines. And if anyone's close to me, they saw a video I probably sent to them where I was walking with my research partner Now, we're not really research. We're just go out for whatever because we know they're there. We were filming with my cell phone, just playing around, talking, making noise. Heard a single crow overhead, and everything got silent. We had a very brief odor. The odor didn't linger. It didn't drift away. It didn't anything. It was just there and gone. Bam. And I'm looking at my computer, make sure I didn't get a call. So I trailed a game trail with my cell phone, just like this. And I was telling Richard, I'm like, see, there's a little game trail. Could be coons, fox, bobcats. And I just briefly paused my cell phone. I weren't even looking in the cell phone. I was looking at the vegetation, which was a kazoo vine. And I caught this black creature. Some say it's a Dogman. Some say it's a Bigfoot. I don't know what it was. Some people say I hoaxed it and put a person in there in a costume. I don't care. Honestly, your opinions don't matter. I'm not a hoaxer and I'm not making money off this, so think what you will. But this creature just was in blackness that was created by these vines, little holes in them. Paused long enough to get the creature, which I did not see. I said on that video for a year before we saw it. And the creature is looking forward, and it just turns and looks at me like that. Well, we never seen it. Why didn't we see it? Because these vines have these little tunnels in them that create dark spots, and they can literally be sitting there, and you never see them. This little creature thing, I could have reached out and touched it. And I want you to just think about that. Think about that. So when Matthew come in, Matthew was a 100-year flood. Then Florence was a 500-year flood. When Matthew come in, we really didn't get in our area for a long time. And when we found what we did on the video, actually somebody found something else on the video, which made us look at the video closer. If you originally watched the video from the beginning, there looks like a little black cat running down the trail. We're in the middle of a swamp. I'm a cat person. I would have seen it. Apparently not, because I didn't. Some people say it's a rabbit. Some people say it's a Dogman pup or a Black Panther kid. I don't know. We don't know what it is. But that's around the same time we filmed the little creature in the vines. And this weren't patty type or anything else like that. It looked, honestly, it had shoulders and it was slender like a human. Black as coal. So we couldn't figure out how we didn't see it and how they flanked us that day, because we got flanked. And when the flood come through, everything died. All the vegetation, all the greenery was gone. And when I remember when we went back in there, we're like, you know, what the hell? I mean, for me and Richard have a personal attachment to that land, and it bothered us to see it destroyed like that, because we knew what was out there too, and we knew they had young. Just didn't know which category it would fall into. And what we were able to see is when the waters come through and killed everything, you could see the kazoo vines where they had made a tunnel system in these vines. So the whole time we were out there walking, they were paralleling us within arm's distance. And you could see where the vines were shaped. Some of it was probably shoulder high, some of it probably knee high. And if you think about that, and when people say, well, you have lack of structures or markers in your area, therefore you must not be hearing or seeing what you're seeing, I don't agree with anyone that would say that, because they don't need markers and they don't need structures. And you've got to do is sit in those vines. If you stay still enough, food's going to come to you. And not only that, if you get hungry enough, you can eat the damn vine, dig up the root, and it's a miracle cure to whatever ails you. So when we're looking at their lifespan, whether it's anything crypto, Bigfoot, Dogman, werecat, I'm actually looking at werecat now, but what they're taking in is giving them their longevity. If you're craving a root, if you're eating a root and eating the leaves of this plant and it's beneficial, what the? Yes, sir.
Yeah, would you happen to have things to take the nuts out of the car to replace the tire?
No, sir, I don't.
Thank you.
So anyway, they're literally curing their illness. People talk about how they recover fast and how they heal fast. It's in the roots. It's in what they're taking in. And I mean, that's common sense 101. We know that. But they're also living in these vines. They're camouflage. The other day I went to a sick wildlife call. Got there, storm was coming in. The lady said, well, the raccoon was in my flower bed. It was swaying back and forth. It kind of sounded more like distemperament than rabies. So she said it went into the wood line because she had domestic animals. I said, well, okay, I'll go check it out. I went into the woods, and this kazoo vine was growing everywhere. But what I saw were rabbits were being flushed out of the vines. I mean, they're just going everywhere. I'm like, well, there's my raccoon. Sure enough, go in and find a raccoon. We're happy about going in because it's a snake haven too. But the thing is, it's where the small game lives. It will come right to you. And if you're kind of following what I'm saying, I'm really not good at explaining things. I would write this out, but anyone that knows me knows I'm not the brightest crayon in the box, and I have a way of just jumping from here to there. But the small game's there too. All you have to do is literally sit still, and they're going to come to you. And if you want a snack while you're waiting on a little juicy rabbit to come, eat the vine. So there's so many things about this vine we can relate to the crypto world. So many things. Tina and I were on a property that the people lived there for over 10 years. We got on our hands and knees. We crawled through this vine because we found a nest. Like a nest where, like, I'm 5'9". I was 5'10" before I broke my back, but that's neither here or there. But that gives you an idea. You could lay 4 or 5 of me in a row, and that would be the space under this nest. It was just beautifully woven branches that created a tunnel. Well, we got on our hands and knees, crawled through these vines, and we went into a clearing the property owner never knew they had. It was just wild ferns, trees. You could just see between the trees. And so these vines not only conceal animals, they're a crop for animals. They're now considered a weed. There's a tunnel system under them, and they hide like little cities. And when I say cities, I don't mean metro cities with buildings and stuff. Just think if you're an animal and you have a green wall of vines, and beyond those vines you have an area where you're safe from people, and it's open and it's free, for them to roam and be animals and eat without intrusion. So these vines, next time you're out, take a closer look at these vines. They're in there. And I've just touched the surface of looking at this, but I can honestly say this applies to my area. It may not apply to your area. If not, that's great. And I'm also looking for input. Eating the roots is probably increasing the lifespan. B, the vines are cover. Small game go in there. And there's tunnel systems in there. So just kind of food for thought. Thank you.
All right, guys, a lot of just great information and ideas / theory right there. From a person that, just reached out one day to me. She was on duty and in her animal control vehicle and recorded that. There's actually a video of her looking at the camera, but like I said, anonymity is a key. I will never break anyone's anonymity. I really do hope someday I can have her on to share a lot of this great research experience that she's had. Because, like I said, she's been all over North Carolina, South Carolina, Bladenboro area, just looking for answers like we are. So, With that, let's jump into today's next encounter. It was the summer of 2011. My mom thought it'd be a great idea to visit my granddad at the trailer park where he would be staying during the summer. It's not that I wasn't an outdoorsy kid. I loved being outside. I always visited my grandfather. But there were not many kids my age. However, this year would be different. When I arrived at the trailer park, I saw a friend of mine who I had known since kindergarten. We hung out a little bit and introduced each other to our grandfathers. My grandpa was a man of the great outdoors. He knew the surrounding woods like the back of his hands, including the mountains behind them. During that time, my granddad, my friend, and I would camp in the woods whenever we felt like it. But on June 10th, that's when it started. It was early in the evening, and I had decided to go for a little hike. The summer breeze was amazing, and the sound of the rushing river and animals was peaceful. I saw squirrels, chipmunks. I could even hear wolves howling in the distance. I sat on a log to rest, and I noticed the mountain near the trailer park. I always asked if the mountain had a name, and everyone called it Mount Howell. I heard a lot of howling from that mountain and assumed that multiple packs of wolves lived there, which is how it got its name. Then I heard a howl from the mountain. It sounded louder than a normal wolf, as if it belonged to something much bigger. I decided to head back to the trailer since it was getting late. Little did I know this night would be the scariest night of my life. Later that night I was sleeping peacefully to the sound of nature, but everything went quiet, including the wind. My granddad had taught me a lot about nature, and a saying he always told me is if nature goes quiet, there is a predator nearby. I started hearing leaves and twigs breaking, and I decided to take a peek from my window, and that's when I saw it. A large creature with black fur. At first I brushed it off, thinking, oh, it's a black bear, until it stood on its hind legs. Its body was too slim to be a bear. In fact, it looked more wolf-like. But I could easily tell that it was taller than your average wolf. Then it howled, but it was the same one from earlier in the evening. It sniffed the air as if it was hunting. Then it turned its head, looking at our trailer, looking at me. I was completely frozen in fear. This human wolf-like creature was hunting, and it had found me. I ducked under the window and hid under my blanket, footsteps growing louder and louder until they stopped. I waited a little bit and then made the biggest mistake I could have ever made. I looked out that window again, and there it was, an above-average-sized wolf with human-like arms ending in sharp claws, a wolf-like head. My eyes widened and fear enveloped me to the point where I couldn't breathe. It turned its head to the right and walked off. I thought it had lost interest, but then I heard a shaking noise. It was the sound of the trailer door that the creature was trying to get in. Eventually, I was able to run out of my bed and keep the door from opening. Since I was only 8, I wasn't enough, until I heard the sound of a gun being fired and the creature howling in pain and running off. When I no longer heard the footsteps, I opened the door and saw one of our neighbors, John. "Are you okay?" he asked, but the only response I could muster was, "What was that?" Thankfully, he responded, "That's the reason why we call that mountain Mount Howell." For the rest of the summer, I stayed either with my friend or my grandfather inside that trailer. I never hiked those woods again, and I'm glad John stopped that creature. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be here sharing that story. Also, Mount Howell is not the name of that mountain. I later found out what it was called, but for safety reasons, I don't want to share. I don't want anyone going up there and getting hurt. Today's the final encounter. This experience takes place on my granddad's property up in Colorado mountains, a couple of hours outside of Denver. My grandparents live in a decent-sized cabin smack dab in the middle of the woods. They own about 170 acres of forest of their own. At this time, I was 19 years old, decided to go hunting because deer season had just opened up and I was honestly excited to go. At around 9 in the morning, after a breakfast of pancakes and eggs, I packed a small bag, told my parents and grandparents I was going to see if I could bag a deer. They said okay and let me on my way. To give a little info on myself, I'm 6'4", 185, so I by no means am a small guy. I took about 30 minutes to walk to the tree stand, as I was trying to be as quiet, and also it was freezing outside. It was like 10 degrees with the wind chill. I arrived at my stand and took the ladder up and sat in my tree stand. I was in a very good spot because I was high enough to see around me and partially covered by the branches that still had some leaves on them. I started to give calls and make noise, and after a couple of hours, 3 doe came running out of the trees to my right into my shooting lane. I, unfortunately, was not going for doe, but it was a little morale booster because it meant that deer were around and I was absolutely freezing my ass off in the stand. After watching the doe for a bit, they disappeared off in the other direction and I again was left alone. I waited another hour to see if anything else would come, but nothing did, so I opened my backpack and pulled a couple granola bars out with some trail mix and my water. It was lunchtime and I was starving. I finished my snacks and sipped some water, and in the middle of my drinking some water, a huge 8-point buck came trotting through the trees, and to be honest, I almost choked on my water. This was the biggest buck I had ever seen, and it was right in my shooting lane, and it was broadside, which was perfect. It was about 50-ish yards out, and my heart was racing. I was so excited. I was carrying my personal .308 Winchester, which my dad had bought me a year before when I turned 18. I steadied my aim and took a breath as I looked through and adjusted the scope. And I saw that damn thing kick into gear and sprint away into the trees. God dang it, I muttered under my breath. I was genuinely pissed off. I thought to myself, what the hell scared it off? I looked around through my scope and glanced to my left, and that's when I saw this thing 30 feet to my left. I couldn't believe I didn't pass out. There was a set of huge amber-colored eyes staring right through my soul. My gut dropped as I saw this thing emerge from the forest, coming into view, walking on 2 legs, jet black, the head of a German shepherd. Its ears were pointed. It was around 7 feet tall, muscular, not like a bodybuilder, but like a professional track runner. Its legs were skinny and dog-like and very defined. Its arms were lanky, ending in claws. Then I saw its lips curl back and show me its canines, like it was snarling. I wanted to leave, I wanted to get out of there, but I couldn't stop looking at this thing. I was fixated on it, and it was fixated on me. I was cold, and my blood felt like there was ice coursing through them. I was shaking, my thoughts running through my head. I realized my .308 Winchester would probably not do me any good. This thing would shred me to bits. As if my mind and soul weren't shattered enough already, this thing slowly began walking toward my stand. It got maybe 25 feet away and just stared at me. Words cannot describe the fear or terror I was feeling at this point. It gave me this, you lucky you didn't shoot that deer or you'd be next, look. It then growled this low, guttural, loud growl. The best I can describe is a alligator bellow but longer, and not as throaty. I was sweating so badly, my heart was pounding so hard, I thought it was going to explode. Then it gave out this kind of snort, turned off and ran in a swift motion, jumping back to all fours and running in the direction of the buck. I sat there for 30 minutes watching and waiting because there was no way I was getting off this stand after watching that thing. I finally gathered enough courage and sprinted home as fast as I could. I told my parents, but they didn't believe me, of course. My grandparents, on the other hand, pulled me aside after and said they had seen it as well. They haven't seen it in a couple of years, but They know that it's out there. I've been back several times and never saw it again, nor do I want to. I think of myself as being insanely lucky, and that day I was hungry for deer. I'm glad it was hungry for deer that day and not me. A warning for all those out in the woods. There are some things in those woods that cannot be tamed, so be alert and be careful. All right, folks, I hope you all enjoyed tonight's second half as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. Your support is honestly what makes the channel continue to grow and go, and honestly what makes it a place that people feel comfortable sharing their experiences, sharing their theories and ideas. It is a special place, and that is all because of you guys. That is the community that you guys have created, and I thank you guys for that. So thank you. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, our pets, our family, and friends. These creatures are real. They are out there. They are dangerous. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for answers, and God bless.